What's up, guys? Today I figured I would do a video show you how to replace some mouse switches. So this is not my favorite mouse. It is just a mouse I had laying around. I'll get a shot of the other one that I'm going to replace after I take this one apart and make sure the switches are the same. So this one here, you know, it's like a child's mouse. It's very small and I don't like it. So you can see just got some dots for feet. And before you go running your mouths in the comments, you know, I'm not really a big gamer these days on the PC, so it really doesn't matter to me if these are top quality switches. What matters to me is that the other ones register when I right click and then you know, left click to copy and paste, because the other ones are failing. It's an old mouse, and you might be saying to yourself, well, why don't you just buy a new one? Well, because the fucking thing doesn't fit in my hand the right way, and I tried several of them, and today things, you know, you go on Amazon and you got 10,000 different fucking reviews that, you know, people, oh, this broke, that broke, and I was looking at the Red Dragon M711, which I thought was a pretty good one, but then you start reading the comments and you think, ah, fuck it, just fix what you got and be done with it. So let's get these pads off of here. There's screws under here. We'll take it apart, take a look at the switches, see if they match, and we'll show you how to replace them. So I tried heating these things and, you know, they're not coming out. So I'm just going to get a drill and I'm going to drill down through each one of these and see if I could see the screw, because they're not budging. Okay, so it turns out there's no screw in there, but just snaps together. Okay, so it turns out that there was a screw in there, and it was under the quality control pass. So big deal, right? I don't really care. I'll salvage the caps and these ceramic capacitors and, you know, the resistors and the USB cord out of here. So here's what it looks like inside. You got the mouse wheel. This does a little click, so it has a switch here. And then it has your right and left switch. Generic switches, but nevertheless, switches that are, you know, usable. And I can't see, yeah, I know you get a pack of 4 for $6 and some cents, and I'll get some assholes in the fucking comments, blah, blah, this and that, so do what you want to do. I don't really give a shit, but anyway, we're gonna go ahead, and it looks like there's, you know, the standard 3 poles. We'll heat the soldering iron up, get some solder wick and wick that away, and then we'll get on to seeing if these are the same size as what's in my other mouse. Okay, so here's the mouse that, you know, I like. I like this a lot. I had this, I got it at Target. Oh man, probably 2014, and it's still in good shape. It's got some wear on it and everything, but nevertheless, you know, I like to, just comfy for me. Okay, so you got the extra wheel, plus when you push this wheel down, or this one I forget, you can scroll up, down, left, right, and this does have the anti-skids on. And we're going to heat these up with a hair dryer, and we're going to use a X-Acto knife to pull them off, because pretty sure you're not going to get these again. And to cut new ones, you're just never going to get them cut right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll cut back. Alright, so we got them off, and unfortunately the glue dried out, so they just kind of popped off after you heat it. But that's no big deal, because we can use some contact cement or some super glue and just put, if this focuses, you know, a dab here and a dab there, and stick them back on. Now we'll take the screws out of that. Take this apart, and we'll see the switch size. Alright, so we got the cover separated, and take a look at them switches. And it looks like they're going to be about the same size, so we're going to go ahead and disassemble this, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and clean this up. And you know, I hate when they put this rubber coating on. It always wears off. I had my Logitech keyboard, same thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove that, clean it up. And you can see where I always touch there. Clean it up, give it a cleaning. Alright, so first things first, we're going to go ahead and remove the USB cord. And then we have free access to this. And, you know, there's probably some screws here that I'm not seeing. But we're going to remove that. You can see all the crud on the wheel. We'll clean that up. But what gets me is, you know, people go on Amazon and say, where's it made? Where do you think it's made? 99.9% is either made in Mexico or China, Taiwan or whatever. So what's the big deal? These are generic switches, and, you know, quite frankly, if you're not a gamer and this and that, any switch will do you. Okay, so at this point, you know, you might want to start taking pictures to remember how stuff went. These are snapped in there, so I'm going to take some pictures, and I'm not going to include them in the video, but I figured I'd mention that if you're taking something apart that has a lot of pieces, unlike that thing. Alright, so that little white piece that you've seen on this side, that rubber wheel just comes off of that, and we'll clean that up. Just keep the orientation right. Okay, so we got the wheels out, and I did notice these clips here hold this board in, so you got to be careful because these tabs could break off easy. That's going to remove the circuit board. Okay, so after you do them clips, there's a screw right here that's going to have to come off. And by the way, this red switch is identical to this one. So that is used for the mouse wheel when you want to, you know, scroll up and down and this and that. So I'm wondering if these switches are different, but I highly doubt it. They're probably same functionality, just a different type thing. And these switches come apart, by the way. So if I wanted to get anal, I can put the green back in and, you know, make it the way it was original, but I'm not doing that. So with that screw out, that just lifts right out of there, and then this piece should just lift right out of here, and it does. So we're just going to set that aside. We're going to go down, blow this off, and then we'll get to desoldering. Okay, one thing I did notice here is there's a spring here and there's one here, so you gotta watch on this one anyway, and you know, maybe others do it too. But you're gonna end up you know, taking these springs out and, you know, set them in your parts bin. Really inspect stuff before you just go tearing it apart. Look around. Alright, so those springs are out, and then what I did was I turned this around gently and notice this part comes off. Okay, so the top of the mouse, we're gonna have two screws here, and that's gonna disassemble some other stuff. So that just disassembled this, and the side buttons here, there's no screws on that. They're actually plastic riveted, so you gotta be careful with that. Alright, so the back of this piece is gonna separate, and there's tabs there that get hooked under there. Alright, so this top board here, you can see there's 3 legs. This just pulls out of here, just like so. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to clean all this up, and the switches, as you can see, they're the same switches. Same height. And same width. So if you have extra parts around and you have a parts bin, you know, it's good to keep this stuff around, and you don't have to be waiting on parts or anything like that. Okay, so there you go. Got her all cleaned up. She looked brand new. Now just gonna go ahead and take the soldering iron and wick that solder out of these 3 holes here and them here, and then we'll go ahead and wick it out of there and there, and then we have an extra one here in case we need that. Okay, so what you're looking at right now, and I thought this is important to mention, is you got C, NO, and NC. All 3 legs are soldered onto the GE board, which you're looking at. Now, the cheap-ass one has C, NO, and then NC. And if you look down there, the 3rd leg is not soldered in. So if you run across that, it's just the circuit. It's the same switch, and let me see if I can get that to focus. So you got 1 amp, 125 volt, and I can't see what AC. So basically your USB is just 5 volt anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but I thought I would mention that anyway. Alright, so this is the solder wicking braid. You could use a solder sucker, but you know, most of the time that's just a pain in the ass and you overheat the components. At least I do anyway. So this works better for me. This is what we're going to be using to desolder. Alright, so we got those switches out on that one, and we got them out on that one, and we'll take a look at them right there. So you can see they're the exact same thing. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, use some flux cleaner, clean all of this off, both sides real good, and then what you want to do is you want to tin the legs on this one here. You just kind of want to, you know, re-tin them so they're nice and they'll take the solder joint. You want good solder joints. Alright, so we got that re-tinned, and make sure that after you retin both sides, you clean with the flux cleaner in between and around there. And then over here, you can see I cleaned the board up. And if you get confused, it's pretty self-explanatory, at least on this board. Your switch orientation, you can see the little switch goes there. So that's going to go in that way, and then the other one is going to be the same way. Alright, so you can see I got that in there, and you can see that flux, so you want to be sure to clean that off. The other thing I want to mention is if you notice on this, let me get that to focus, if you notice on the mouse one, the wheel, alright, so the one that uses the wheel, they have a little thing to raise that up. So make sure you put that back if you run into that. Alright, so we got them both in, cleaned up. And you can see that one right there is raised up because of that spacer. And the only other tip I'll give you is when you're soldering these in, you know, just hold them that way upside down and then put some flux on each leg and run your solder iron in, and boom, you know, little dab will do you. Okay, so upon closer inspection with this thing here, this other board, you can see there's some corrosion here. You're going to take some deoxit, and if you see any of that, you're going to have to clean that up, and we're going to clean them legs up. And then I'm going to shoot a little deoxit, even though I'm not having problems with the back and forward button, I'm going to shoot a little deoxit in there. And we'll get to taking the switch apart and show you what's in there. It's copper, whatever it is that they have in there. And when they rate these, the reason they're rating them for, you know, 1 million clicks, this and that, is because of the thickness of the brass and this and that. To give you, it weakens. It's like a spring. Alright, so that's all I'm going to use just to shoot in there and get rid of that oxidation. Alright, so there you go. You could see that deoxit cleaned everything up, both sides. Switches sound better. And it wouldn't hurt to just give a little deoxit to all the switches and make sure that they're not, you know, corroded or anything before you go putting it back together. But put that board back on there. We're getting ready to reassemble. Alright, so we got her back assembled, and those little springs are actually, I don't know if you can see this here, those white things hold the springs down. And everything seems to be working nice and smooth. Okay, so now for the plastic housing. How do you make this rubber shit go away? Well, we're going to take some wet dry sandpaper, and this here, you know, is really just embedded in the plastic, although this stuff is not. It's kind of rubber, and from over the years it wore away. So we'll take some wet dry sandpaper, work our way up until we get a shine, and we'll remove this shitty rubber. And if any companies or anybody that works for any companies out there, stop putting this rubber shit on the keyboards and the mice. It's junk. It makes it look like shit. Don't do it. Stop it. Alright, so with some sandpaper, 1200 grit, and some toothpaste, shine that fucker up. Made it look like new. Let's put it together. So that's what she looks like put back together. Alright, so last but not least, what you're going to need to do is get yourself some 1200 grit or 1000 grit sandpaper, whatever you have. Clean all the glue off the sliders, and then clean all the glue out of the bottom of the mouse. And now we're gonna add some either super glue or contact cement. I'm not quite sure what, but I do know that glue was hard as hell to get off, so probably just use some super glue and just put a dab on a toothpick, put it on. Alright, so there we go, got them back on, let that dry, and that's gonna finish this up. Okay, so there is the inside of the old switch. You can see that little green thing is nothing more than a plastic thing that depresses on. We'll get a shot of the top here, this copper piece. So the next time somebody tells you, or you read, oh, it has these switches and this and that, and there's something special about it, bullshit. You got a piece of fucking copper, and you got a piece of metal here, and this little piece here depresses, and this right here makes contact with this. And that green part pushes down, and that's what gives you your clicks. So these people that are ranting and raving about certain switches, all it is copper. That's it. Okay? Nothing special. And it's just the gauge of the copper. So if you got a lighter gauge spring, it's going to be more springy. If you got a lighter gauge piece of copper that acts like a spring, that's it. There's the finished product. Came out damn good. And we'll see if it works now. Okay, so you can see this is plugged in. Optic is working, and that is the mouse. Left click, copy, paste. So she works. Alright, so one thing I did want to mention too, when you depress the wheel button to do the auto scroll, before I used to have down, up, and left and right. So apparently, as I noted in the video earlier, the switches that are green have a little something different in them, and I'd have to pull them apart. But I'm not going to worry about that because I don't even use that function anyway, but I thought it was worth noting.